everyone, welcome to Signature Flowers. This year you can't be here, but we've brought the workshop to you. Hopefully you'll all have got your What's in My Pizza Box kit. This was the best way I could think of getting the kits out to you this year, so as you could still have that enjoyable experience of making your own wreath. So as long as you've got your kit, your foliage, your scissors and your glass of something fizzy, then we're good to go. So in your kit you will have a wreath ring, a roll of reel wire, and separate to it you'll have a bag of moss. Now I would use all of this moss. Make sure it's nice and damp before you use it, which is probably a good reason to have a covering on your table by now. To start with, we're simply going to attach the reel wire to the frame, and we do this by threading it through and simply twisting a couple of times round, just so as it's all connected. It's that simple. And then we start to add the moss. So we're breaking it up into handfuls, laying it onto the frame and simply binding it on. Now what you need to do is make sure this goes on quite tightly. This is going to be the base of your entire wreath and we don't want it to fall apart. So simply just keep adding moss and wrapping around until you've gone around the whole circle. You only need to lay the moss on one side, that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going the whole way around. You can see it doesn't need to be neat. You're not going to see this bit. This is literally just the base. It's going to keep everything neat and tidy and keep everything moist once it's on your door. So that's quite a nice chunk of moss I've just added on. And again, I'm just going to go round and round with the wire. So by now you should have gone the whole way around your wreath ring and you should still have your reel wire attached. So what we're going to do is snip this off. I'd say leave a couple of inches and just cut it off. Then what you're going to do is simply find your original frame, the one that we put the moss onto, and wrap this wire around it a couple of times. It's just to hold everything in place. So simply just poke it through a few times around the frame so you're happy that everything is secure. If you've got a tail like this, you can just poke it up into the thing. So that is your part one done. So the next thing we need to do is sort out the foliages. I've pre-cut most of mine, and as per your instructions you'll see I've suggested that most of the lengths are about the size of the palm of your hand. So I've got eucalyptus, I've got some lovely blue pine, I've got some ruscus, and I've got some coned pine as well. And what we're going to do, first of all, I'm just going to show you with this branch. If you have one of our foliage kits and it has the blue spruce in it, which is smells just like Christmas, make sure you utilise all of it. So this main branch, cut everything off of it to start with. Some pieces will perfectly be for the right size already. Others won't be, they'll be a bit like that and a bit straggly. And again, this doesn't take many seconds, just snip it all off. I wouldn't use those bits. So, and then if you get pieces like this, simply snip at a break point. So you want everything to be as neat as possible. So if you cut it in here, when you lay it on your wreath, you'll barely see where you cut it. So cut it nice and low into a seam, so to speak. Okay? So I'm going to show you now how we attach the foliage onto the wreath. So as we did right at the very beginning, and it doesn't matter where you do this, attach your wire back to your wreath ring. Simply thread it through and twist it round a couple of times. Okay? And then we're going to start to choose what foliage we put onto the wreath. So I like a lot of blue spruce on my wreaths. It makes them look a little bit bigger and nice and full. And I always use a couple of placements of foliage at a time. So I'm going to start just with a piece of ruscus and a piece of foliage, and you simply lay it in one direction the whole way around. So you lay the first piece in the middle and you wrap it round a couple of times. Now make sure that these are tight, because eventually the foliage will start to dry out, but you want it to stay in place. So now we've got that first one there on the top, you need to get your next pieces, and they're going to go just to one side of that, because what we want to make sure we're doing as we go round the circle is creating a really nice full circle on both the inside and the outside. So my next placement is going to come just on the inside here, just an inch or so lower than the one we put on previously. And again, just wrapping it round a couple of times, nice and tightly. And then the next piece, which will go on the other side. So this time I'm going to use some of my lovely pine, another piece of eucalyptus, and I'm going to lay that on the outside. So then you'll see the next piece needs to go in the centre. And as we go round, if you just remember, centre, inside, outside, centre, inside, outside, and keep it nice and tight, you'll end up with a lovely full wreath. Okay, so as you can see, I've nearly finished my wreath. I've gone all the way around with lots of different foliages and created a lovely full wreath. If I just turn it round, you can see the back, you can see the moss still, but you can just see where I've got a nice circular foliage on the inside of the frame and on the outside, okay? So I wanted to show you this bit because the most important thing now is that we don't see stubby ends as we start to put the last placements on. So I'm going to carry on just another little while, but obviously continuously placing this foliage on top of the stems from the last placement, so as you don't see any blunt ends, and wrapping it really tightly around and around a few times. I can't reiterate how important it is to go round it tightly. So this is probably my penultimate placement. I'll probably just do one more. So as you can see, this is where I ended and this is where I started, and what I need to do is make sure that this is a really smooth circle. So when I put my next piece of foliages in, I'm going to lift up the foliage that I started with and make sure that the blunt stems from my last placement are underneath the first foliage placement. So I've got a couple of nice pieces of spruce, and I'm going to do two more actually. So I'm going to tuck one of the spruce in nice and low down here, lifting this first foliage up and making sure that this goes underneath. So nice and tight in here now. And then a couple of smaller pieces. And I've got a nice floaty piece of eucalyptus. Does anyone else love the smell of eucalyptus? It's my favourite. And then you'll see, so I'm literally going to put this in here and make sure that my wire goes right underneath my first piece of foliage. And this is going to be super tight in here. Okay, so then as you lift it up now, you cannot see where you began because you've got a really lovely full circle. And again, you've got your wire left on. So what we're going to do, I might actually put one more piece in just because it's a bit skinny there. We'll do that and then cut your wire again like you did before and wrap it round your original wreath frame so as this is secure again, okay? I just need a small piece in here. It just doesn't feel quite finished in this last little end. So I'm going to tuck that right down in here because I love a full wreath. I don't like a gappy wreath at all. Yeah, that's better. And again, just a couple of times round, extra tight because this is the last go. And then I'm going to snip my wire, hold it up. I'm going to turn it round so you can see slightly better this time. It'll be starting to get a little bit difficult to find the wire because there's so much stuff on the frame now. But I promise you, if you have a ferret around, it's in there. Brilliant. So there we go. A lovely full circle, no end and no beginning, which is the whole point of a circle really. And it's ready to decorate. So I'm going to clear my bench and then I will show you how to wire up all the ornaments that you've got, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now we need to concentrate on the items that are going to decorate your wreath. So, firstly, if you have the red or the blue berries on the single stems, you don't need to worry about wiring those. They're simply on a strong enough wire for you to poke into your moss and bend up the other side. So that's a really simple one. And likewise with the blue starry night wreath, if you have this lovely silver foliage, that splits up into a bunch of 3 and does exactly the same thing. You can just simply bend it, push it through and bend it up. The first thing I'm going to show you how to wire is the dried oranges. Look at the state of my hands. It's not even December yet, for goodness sake. So with these, all you do is you take a wire and you need to push it through from one side to the other, okay? Just like that. It's that simple. Make sure you've got a much longer wire one side and a short one the other. Pull them into the centre, let them cross over, and then twist. That's lovely and secure now, ready to go into your wreath. The cinnamon bundles we've already glued together for you because we weren't sure how many people would have their own glue guns. So all you need to do, and this is the one that has to be the tightest, so the people who are making mulled wine, I hope you've got strong thumbs. So simply in the centre of the cinnamon, make a hook, and then you're going to put the long and the short together and twist them really tightly against the cinnamon, okay? I don't want that to fall out. It's got to be nice and strong. Now that wire is quite unsightly, so in your kits you'll also have some red raffia, which we simply wrap round a few times to hide the wire. Bring it up to a central point, tie it off, and trim it. So then that's all ready to go into your wreath, okay? And just get rid of that. The berry bundles, which are in the Starry Night kit and the signature kit, they come in bundles of 10 or 12. Split them in half or use them as they are. It's up to you entirely. Or even you can take them off and just wire them straight onto the wreath. It depends how much of a focal point you want to make of them. So I normally split the bundles in half and fold the stems up in half. Then I get a wire, fold it over my thumb and make a little hairpin, place it against, and then twist the long wire around the stem of the product and the short stem. Okay, so again, nice and firm. Once they're in, you can pull them around or you can squish them up together. Maybe not like that. They do go back on, it's only polystyrene. Maybe be a bit more gentle than I am, a bit lighter handed perhaps. Then we have the pine cones. Now this is the one that is probably hardest to explain, but what I need you to do is lay the wire into the cone. So you'll see it's just fitted perfectly just in there. Bring the long wire around to the short wire and then just twist. But that wire really needs to be embedded in the cone, okay? So it's really nice. A, it's hidden, you can't see it unless you look for it. And B, it just needs to be really, really, really firm, okay? If you've got mulled wine, you've got apple slices. So I've just got a couple here. I'm just gonna grab a thinner wire. And just push your wire through gently at the edge, and like we've done with everything else, make a hairpin and twist. The key is a tight twist really, and you'll be good to go. Then we've got the acacia and the asparagus, which are in my signature wreath. With both of these, all you need to do is make a hook, lay it against the natural stem, and wrap the long around the short and the natural stem, okay? Leaving yourself a long enough wire, but probably not that long, you don't need to. And again, with the asparagus, lay it against and twist it round. Now, once you've done all of this, I would suggest that you lay your wreath flat on the table and you start to work out where you want things to go. Now obviously this isn't going to look right because I've got a bit of mulled wine, a bit of Starry Night, and some signature, but just work it out. And because you could, when it's like this, it's much easier to change it about. If you want to swap that over with that, it's far easier than when you've attached them to your wreath and then you decide you want to move them around. Okay, so have a good play around with the design at this stage, then you can start to put it onto your wreath. So we're finally ready to decorate the wreath. You've wired all your cones, your foliages that you might need to add in, your apple slices, cinnamon, you name it, it should all have a wire on it now. So I'm going to show you how to fix it all in. At this point, it's key to remember that your wreath doesn't have to look exactly like the picture that I created. If you want to put all your decorations on one side asymmetrically and then a bow in that part, then feel free. If you want to copy the picture of mine that you chose originally, that's also absolutely fine. The wreath I'm going to show you how to make now is the signature style one. It's my favourite. It's in our new brand colours, copper and orange. You'll notice on social media and our new website that everything's started to change. Slowly the shop front and the van will change in April because that's when the new van comes. But it's really exciting. It's kind of the next chapter, something a little bit more classy than blue, and something that will hopefully come with us as we continue to expand over the next few years. So you should now have a finished wreath. Now one last thing before we decorate it is we need to put a hanger on it, and you're going to do this with your real wire because you don't want anything too big. You need to decide where the top of your wreath is. It doesn't matter, just have a look at it and see perhaps where you might like your bow to sit. My wreath isn't quite so interesting here, it hasn't got cones. So I'm going to make this my bow side, so I'm going to hang it from here, okay? And all we're going to do is gently lay it down on the table, and like we did originally, we are just going to make a simple wire hook. So you need to find your original frame, you need to thread it through, twist it round a couple of times, and then I'd say maybe a small ruler length, snip it off, and then simply hook it through another section and twist it round. Don't make the hanger any taller than your foliage, so you can't see mine, or you won't see it when it's decorated. Okay, so that is now your hanging point, and you need to decide where your ribbon is going to go. I know we haven't made those yet, so that's going to be the very last thing we do, which is why I've still got fizz, because I imagine I'll need it. So I'm going to place my cones around here, then some berries, which I've split up. I had 2 berry bundles, I split them into 4 bundles. And then I've got some lovely asparagus and acacia, which I'm going to thread through. Obviously we haven't got so much decoration in this one because we've got different foliages. So my lovely asparagus is on a wire, and all I'm going to do now is start to poke it through at various points in the same direction as the foliage I've already put in. So I've threaded it through, it's coming out the other side, I've pulled it gently so as it goes flat, and then this wire I'm just poking back up now into the moss so as it doesn't scratch anything, okay? And I'm going to go round and add this the whole way round. So simply pushing it through, pulling it and poking the wire back up out the way. I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the acacia. So I've got this lovely coppery orange foliage, and I'm going to alternate this now. So pushing it through, oh, hoping it comes out the other side, there we go, and pushing the wire back up into the moss, okay? So pushing it through, pulling it, making sure it's laid where I want it to go, and then poking the wire back up. where you're putting your items. So if you're starting to place your apple slices and cinnamon and things, think about a regular pattern. What I always suggest is that perhaps you lay it all on before you start actually fitting it through, because that way you can kind of plan, and then it's much easier to change it round laid on top than it is once you've done this bit, I assure you. And with the signature wreath, if you've got the asparagus and the acacia, I'll show you, like I showed you earlier, you can cut it up into as smaller, bigger pieces as you like, but obviously you have only got a certain amount of wires, so that's worth bearing in mind. So I've now added my foliage, and you can see where my bow's going to go here in between. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, like I just said, I'm going to place on, have a look at my cones, and I think on this one I might double them up. Like I said, every wreath is going to be completely unique, and obviously if you've got something floating around at home that you'd like to incorporate, then by all means feel free. I've got the berries as well, so I'm just going to tuck them in. So I've laid them all where I'd like them to go. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. I've got one spare piece of asparagus, which I might tuck in at the end, but we'll see in a second. I'm just going to put all this in and then come back and show you where to put your bow. This piece of the puzzle, the bow, I've left to its own complete separate section. In each of the kits you will have a 2 to 3 metre length of ribbon. I've gone for really nice wired edged ribbons, or a really thick one in the mulled wine one, because they hold their shape so much better. If you have like a ribbon that doesn't have an edge, it flops around and you never quite get the shape that you want. So this lovely copper ribbon has got a wire edge on it, and what you need to do to start with, you'll notice I've got a different pair of scissors now. We never use the same scissors in the shop, or we're not meant to, for ribbons and for foliages and wires and things. So the best way for me to do this is with my back to you, because that way you can kind of visualise it better. So I'm going to just turn to the side and straighten your ribbon out and smooth out any creases from where it's been packaged. And what you're going to do is start with a length about 8 inches long, and you're just going to twist, okay? So simply twist. That's all, nothing else, just a twist. And then we're going to start to make our 4 or 6 loop bow. I'm going for 6. You'll probably give up after 4, and some people have already got me to make their ribbons for them if they've tried at a wreath class before. So I wish you luck. If you can't do it for any reason, bring it in and we'll sort it out for you. So this is your central point where you've just twisted, and you're going to make your first loop and bring it in front and pinch it. Then you've got your long tail, and that's going to make your second loop, and that's going to go around the back and you're going to pinch it. Now swap hands. Keeping that pinch in the middle, you've now got the long ribbon to your bottom left. You're going to bring that up to the centre in the front, and you're going to pinch it together. Everyone with me still? Good. Now you've got a long ribbon up here on the top right, and this is going to go over the back. So simply, you've now got a 4 loop bow. You've got enough ribbon for a 6 loop bow. So we're going to go again. Bottom left, up to the centre, pinch, top right, over the back to the centre, and pinch. Okay? Then we just need to wire it together. So pinching it all in the middle, take one of your nice long wires, fold it over, make a bit of a hook, and hook that straight through the centre, okay? So you've got a top short wire and a long wire. Then all you're going to do, pinch them together so they cross over. So the long wire's now gone up, the short wire's gone down, and twist. I really don't know what all the fuss is about. And there we have it, a really lovely 6 loop, new signature brand colour wreath. Now, we always finish our ribbons off either with a slice or a dovetail. I'm going to do a dovetail, so that just means that you cut a triangle out the bottom, so you get that lovely dovetail effect. So do that on both sides. Now we've done that, that's the final piece of our our wreath jigsaw. So you can see I've got two lovely tails, and on my wreath, it's a bit like Blue Peter this, I've got space here perfectly for where I want my ribbon to go. So I'm just going to poke it straight through, like we did with everything else. Push it through, make sure it's sat where you want it. And actually this wire is far too long, so I've just snipped it. And then I'm folding it back up, like we did everything else, so it's nice and secure. So my wreath is quite asymmetrical. In fact, it's very asymmetrical if I hold it that way. That's the top of my wreath. So my bow is on the side this time. Could be down here, could be up here. The choice is yours. If you've got this far and it looks like this, then a huge well done to you. I cannot wait to see what they all look like. And that one's mine. All that's left now is for me to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Hopefully, Boris has announced by now that you can come back into the shop before Christmas. We would love to see you. Come in and show us a picture and tag us on social media when it's on your front door. We'd love to see your creations. And thank you for supporting this kind of pivot, I suppose. We had to make the wreath classes work somehow this year, and we really hope you've all thoroughly enjoyed making your wreaths at home. Now clear up the mess, top up your mulled wine, and have a very Merry Christmas. From me and all the girls at Signature Flowers, thank you for your continued support, and we'd like to wish you and your loved ones a very happy and peaceful Christmas and a much easier 2021.